I didn't plan for any of this. I was happy, at least I thought I was. 6 years with Alex and life felt steady, safe. People envied our relationship. We had the photos, the vacations, the milestones. On paper, we were perfect. We moved in together at 25, celebrated every anniversary with tradition. Pizza, wine, that one playlist we made when we were teens. The kind of love you grow into, not fall into. It was comforting, familiar. But somewhere along the way, comfort became numbness. It started small. Conversations felt rehearsed. I'd talk and get a nod, that's nice, but no follow-up. Our bed became colder, not physically, but emotionally. He still kissed me goodbye, still asked about my day. But it felt mechanical, like we were performing a version of us that we barely recognized. I started to wonder if it was normal, if all long-term relationships flatten out eventually. I didn't want drama. I didn't want to cheat. I just missed being seen. Then Jamie happened. It was at a friend's birthday party. They were loud, magnetic, the kind of person everyone gravitates toward effortlessly. I wasn't even trying to flirt, just making small talk over cheap wine and chips, but they laughed at everything I said like it mattered. I remember the way they looked at me, like they already knew I was hiding, like they were daring me to be honest. We exchanged numbers under the excuse of sharing that one playlist they mentioned. I went home that night thinking it was nothing. But then they texted. Not the next day. That night. A meme. Something dumb, but it cracked me up. It made me feel like someone was thinking about me past the moment. I didn't delete the thread. Didn't tell Alex. And that silence was my first lie. Over the next few weeks, I saw Jamie more. Just friends, I told myself. We grabbed coffee, shared office gossip, traded jokes, and then one day they asked, "So, are you happy?" I paused too long before answering. Yeah, I lied. They smiled but didn't believe me. I started dressing differently. Not for Jamie. That's what I told myself. But I knew. I was anticipating being seen again. The attention was addictive. I'd check my phone mid-conversation with Alex, hoping to see Jamie's name pop up. It was a high I couldn't explain. Alex never asked. Or maybe he didn't want to know. One afternoon, Jamie touched my hand while laughing. A soft, deliberate graze that lingered longer than it should have. I didn't pull away. I looked at their hand, then at them, and they didn't flinch. I felt my heart race like I was 16 again. That moment rewrote our dynamic. We weren't just friends anymore, and we both knew it. Still, I told myself I hadn't crossed the line. Not really. Emotional cheating isn't real cheating, right? That's what I whispered into the silence while Alex slept next to me. But my phone was under my pillow, buzzing with Jamie's "can't stop thinking about you" texts. I started lying more. Working late when I wasn't. Going out for drinks with coworkers when it was really Jamie. We talked about everything, love, regrets, dreams. Things I hadn't said out loud in years. Jamie saw me. Not the version I'd become with Alex. Not the settled down, autopilot me. They saw the raw version, the one I didn't know I missed. One night, after too much wine and too much honesty, Jamie said, "I wish I'd met you before him." I laughed, tried to brush it off, but my stomach twisted. Because I wished the same. Guilt started creeping in, quietly at first. I noticed the little things. Alex folding my laundry, saving me the last slice of pizza, rubbing my back without asking. He still loved me. Maybe not in fireworks and sparks, but in a quiet, loyal way. And I was betraying that love with every secret. I told myself I'd stop. That I'd pull back. That I could fix this. But then Jamie kissed me. It was raining. Cliché, I know. We just left a bar, both of us soaked and tipsy. I went to say goodbye, and they just leaned in. It wasn't wild or aggressive. It was soft. Certain. Familiar, somehow. I kissed back. Without thinking. Without guilt. It felt like breathing after being underwater too long. When I got home, I avoided Alex's eyes. Showered. Cried. But still didn't confess. I wasn't ready to lose either of them. I wanted both. I craved Jamie's passion and Alex's safety. I told myself I could manage it. I was careful. I deleted texts. made sure my lies were airtight. And deep down, I convinced myself that if no one got hurt, maybe it wasn't really wrong. But something had changed. A switch had flipped. I found myself counting days not by work deadlines or date nights, but by when I'd see Jamie again. And every touch from Alex felt like a lie. He didn't know he was holding a stranger. I tried to act normal, to play the part, but my guilt turned into resentment. I began picking fights, nitpicking, anything to justify the distance I was creating. Still, I didn't stop. Jamie was a fire I couldn't walk away from. They started saying things like, leave him, and we'd be so good together. I laughed it off, said it wasn't that simple. But the seed was planted. Every quiet night with Alex felt like a betrayal to Jamie now, too. It wasn't just about sex. We hadn't even gone that far yet. It was the secrecy, the intimacy, the stolen hours. I was living two lives, and in both I was lying. But I didn't want to choose. Because choosing meant losing. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I wasn't proud. But I wasn't stopping either. The first time it went too far, I didn't plan it. We were supposed to grab a quick lunch. Nothing serious. But the moment Jamie touched my wrist while laughing, I felt something collapse inside me. I didn't pull away. I leaned in. Their mouth found mine like we'd done it 100 times before. It was quiet, fast, and it ruined everything. I didn't sleep with them that day. But everything after changed. I stopped pretending. I stopped calling it innocent. I told myself I was already in too deep, so backing out now would only hurt more. I told myself I'd figure it out. I just needed time. Jamie didn't ask for much at first. They let me come to them when I could. They let me keep my double life intact. But that didn't last. With every meeting, the tension escalated. There was a hunger between us, a desperate need to close the distance. And eventually we did. The first time we had sex, it was reckless. No plan. No hesitation. Just months of suppressed emotions exploding in a matter of minutes. After, I sat on the edge of the bed in silence. Jamie lit a cigarette. Now what? They asked. I didn't have an answer. I went home smelling like regret and perfume I didn't wear. Alex was asleep. I climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. I wanted to feel shame, but I felt numb. Like I'd cracked a part of myself I couldn't glue back together. The lies came easily after that. I said I had work events, friends visiting, gym classes. I became a pro at managing calendars, deleting messages, keeping the two halves of my life completely separate. Alex didn't notice, or maybe he didn't want to. Jamie started calling me late at night, just to hear my voice. They'd say things like, I miss you, or do you ever think about just running away? I never answered those questions. I just listened, heart racing, too afraid to admit I had. I was scared of how much I wanted it. With Alex, I became distant. Intimacy felt like betrayal, even though I was the one breaking things. I'd turn my back in bed. I'd fake headaches. Every time he said, I love you, I flinched a little inside. I wanted to tell him, but I didn't want to lose him. I wanted both. I still believed I could have both. Jamie started getting impatient. You can't keep doing this forever, they said one night. You're going to have to choose. I said I knew, but I didn't act. I kept drifting between them, pretending the day of reckoning would never come. There was a moment where I thought about ending it with Jamie, just walking away and pretending it never happened. But I couldn't do it. I'd sit across from them and forget everything else existed. I'd laugh in ways I hadn't in years. I felt alive, desired, and I didn't want to give that up. Then came the first real crack in the foundation. Jamie saw me out with Alex one evening. We didn't notice them, but they texted me later, furious. You looked happy, they wrote. Like I was just a side game. I told them they were wrong, but I couldn't blame them for thinking it. I started hating who I was becoming. Not just the cheating, the lying, the manipulation. I was playing puppet master with people who genuinely loved me, and I couldn't stop. I kept saying I was stuck, but really I was greedy. I didn't want to make the hard choice. I wanted to keep feeling wanted. Jamie gave me an ultimatum after that. Tell Alex or I'm done. I told them I would.
Soon.
I just needed the right moment. But there's no right moment to destroy someone who trusts you. Alex, meanwhile, started noticing. He didn't say it, but I saw it in his eyes. The hesitation. The way he looked at my phone when it buzzed. The way he asked, "You okay?" more often. I brushed it off. I smiled, acted normal, gave him just enough to believe everything was fine. One night, he held my hand while we were watching TV. Just held it, no words. And I felt this wave of guilt so strong, I almost confessed right then. But I didn't. I squeezed back and swallowed the truth. Jamie didn't wait much longer. They showed up at my office one afternoon unannounced. We argued in the parking lot. They asked if I even loved them, or if they were just a distraction. I told them I didn't know. It was the first honest thing I'd said in weeks. They left without saying goodbye. No dramatic exit. Just walked away. And I stood there watching them go, realizing I had pushed them to the edge and still didn't know what I wanted. That night, Alex cooked my favorite dinner. He was trying. He still believed in us. And I sat there across from him, pretending I wasn't completely unraveling inside. I couldn't eat. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, smiled, and excused myself early. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the reflection. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't innocent. I had betrayed two people who saw something in me. And I was still pretending I could make it work. I texted Jamie that night. "I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix this." They replied, "You can't." And they were right. I thought I could hold it together. Thought I could juggle the guilt, the lies, the two people who didn't know they were sharing me. But eventually, reality catches up. And it did, faster than I was ready for. Alex found a message. Not one of the bad ones. Just enough. Enough to raise the right questions. "Who's Jamie?" he asked. I froze. I lied. Said it was a friend from work. He didn't believe me, but he didn't press. Not that day. He just nodded, and the silence after was louder than any fight we'd ever had. A week later, he brought it up again. Calm. Too calm. "I know there's something you're not telling me." My stomach dropped. I wanted to lie again. But I couldn't. I said, "I made a mistake." His eyes didn't move. Just stared right through me like I was already gone. "How long?" That was all he asked. And I couldn't even answer. I just cried. He didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. He just got up, walked out of the room, and didn't come back until the next morning. He didn't say a word when he saw me. Didn't look angry. Just empty. And that was worse. Because I'd killed something that had been pure. Jamie found out not long after. I told them. Not because I was brave, but because I didn't have anything left to protect. I thought they'd feel vindicated. They didn't. They looked at me like I disgusted them. "You waited too long," they said. "You didn't choose me. You waited until you had no choice." I told them I loved them. They laughed. "You don't even know what love is. You just love being wanted." That hit harder than anything Alex said. Because it was true. I tried to patch things up with Alex. Said I'd cut contact with Jamie. Offered therapy. Honesty. Whatever he needed. But he wasn't interested. He said, "I don't trust you. And I don't know if I ever will again." That broke me in ways I can't describe. He was my anchor. My home. And I had burned it down for something that didn't even last. Jamie blocked me a few days later. No dramatic exit this time either. Just silence. No more messages. No more apologies. Just gone. And for the first time in months, I was completely alone. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw one of their faces. The look in Alex's eyes when I confessed. The way Jamie looked at me like I wasn't worth the fight. I'd try to distract myself. Music, work, meaningless conversations, but nothing stuck. It all felt like noise. I didn't tell anyone else. No friends, no family. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want judgment. I just wanted to vanish into the quiet and sit with what I'd done. Every memory I had with either of them now felt tainted. Every laugh, every kiss, every shared secret. It all felt fake in hindsight, even if it wasn't. I thought about reaching out again. To both. A letter, maybe. Something honest. But what was the point? Sorry doesn't rewind time. It doesn't fix trust. It doesn't erase betrayal. It just shows up too late and expects forgiveness that was never earned. People always think cheating is about sex, about lust, about something physical missing. But that's not it. Not for me. It was about feeling invisible, about chasing something that made me feel alive, even if it killed everything else in the process. I didn't cheat because I didn't love Alex. I cheated because I didn't know how to love myself without validation. I used Jamie to fill the cracks. And when they started asking for more, I used Alex's stability to avoid giving it. I was never trying to hurt them. That's what I kept telling myself. But I did. I hurt them both in ways they didn't deserve. I made promises with one hand while breaking them with the other. I turned love into a transaction. I gambled with hearts that weren't mine to play with. And I lost. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was knowing that I had it all. I had someone who loved me unconditionally. Someone who stood by me for years. And someone new who wanted to love me for who I was now. And instead of choosing, I used them both like lifeboats, hoping I'd never have to swim alone. Alex moved out a month later, took what he needed, and left the key on the counter. No note. No final words. Just closure in the form of absence. I stood in the empty apartment and realized I wasn't just alone. I was unwanted. By both. I didn't fight it. I didn't chase either of them. I knew I'd spent all my chances. I had nothing left to bargain with. No version of the truth could undo what I'd done. I had burned 2 bridges and stood in the ashes waiting for forgiveness that was never coming. And maybe I didn't deserve it. The days started to blur after Alex left. There was no dramatic turning point, no instant clarity, just the quiet aftermath of everything I'd ruined. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was loud in its own way. Every empty room felt like it was screaming back the things I couldn't admit aloud. I thought grief would be a wave, something intense but brief. Instead, it was fog, always there, always numbing, hard to escape. I stopped pretending. There was no one left to lie to. No reason to craft stories or keep track of which truth I'd twisted. I woke up alone, worked alone, came home to an apartment that still had pieces of both of them. A shirt Alex forgot. A book Jamie lent me. I couldn't throw them out. I wasn't ready for that kind of honesty. I replayed every conversation in my head. The early ones, when things were innocent, when I still had choices. I remembered the way Jamie smiled when I laughed. The way Alex used to read aloud to me just to hear me fall asleep. And it made me wonder if I ever truly deserved either of them. Because the version of me they fell for was someone I barely recognized anymore. People started noticing something was off. I was quieter at work. Distracted. I missed deadlines. Stopped answering messages. Friends reached out, but I kept them at a distance. I didn't want to explain. What was I supposed to say? That I destroyed everything for nothing? That I had 2 chances at love and treated them both like they were disposable? Eventually, I wrote it all down. Not to send. Just to get it out. Every thought, every lie, every moment, I let myself fall deeper into the mess. I didn't romanticize it. I didn't justify it. I wrote the truth, raw and ugly. I needed to see it laid out, stripped of excuses. I thought about dating again briefly. Not seriously. Just the idea. But I wasn't ready to be seen. Not after the damage I caused. Not while I was still picking through the wreckage. It didn't feel right to ask anyone else to step into this version of my life. Not yet. Some nights I still reached for my phone, fingers hovering over Jamie's contact. Not to beg. Just to say I was sorry again. But I never sent anything. Same with Alex. His number was still saved, and I hated how part of me still hoped he'd message first. Even if it was just to say he hated me. At least that would mean he still felt something. But he didn't. And neither did Jamie. And I had to learn how to live with that. I started therapy, eventually. Not because I thought it would fix everything, but because I needed to talk without filters. I admitted what I'd done. I said it out loud for the first time in a room where no one had anything to lose from hearing it. My therapist didn't flinch, didn't judge, just asked, "Why do you think you needed both?" The question haunted me. I didn't have an easy answer. I said it was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of missing out. But deep down, I think it was more than that. I wanted to be loved without having to choose. I wanted to avoid consequences. I thought I was being brave, chasing passion, but really, I was being cowardly, hiding behind chaos. Acceptance didn't come in a single moment. It was a slow, painful unfolding, realizing I couldn't fix it. That forgiveness, if it ever came, wouldn't erase what happened. It would just be something I had to live with. And I did start to live with it. Not move on, not yet. But breathe. Eat. Work. Function. I cleaned the apartment. Got rid of their things. Not in anger, just with quiet finality. I made space, literally and figuratively. Space for the person I might become next. I stopped stalking their profiles. Stopped imagining what I'd say if I ran into them. I let the fantasy of redemption fade. There would be no grand reunion. No closure wrapped in a bow. Just the reality of consequences. I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the reason it unraveled. Still, I didn't hate myself. Not completely. That surprised me. I expected to drown in self-loathing. But instead, I found something else. A kind of tired honesty. I saw myself for who I was, not the version I wanted people to love, not the version I pretended to be, but the flawed, messy truth. And strangely, that felt like a start. Months passed. Life didn't pause for my shame. I started showing up again, doing better at work, saying yes to plans, laughing without guilt. Not because I forgot, but because I finally accepted what couldn't be undone. The pain didn't go away, but it softened. Became something I could carry. Sometimes people ask about Alex. I say we ended things. They nod. They don't press. No one ever asks about Jamie. It's like that part of the story belongs only to me now. And maybe that's fair. I still think about both of them. Not every day, but in quiet moments. When I hear a song we used to play, when I pass a place we once went, it's not longing anymore. Just memory. Proof that I lived it. That I made choices, some beautiful, some cruel, and had to live with what followed. I know now I didn't really love either of them the way they deserved. I loved what they gave me, what they reflected back at me. And until I learned to love myself without needing to be mirrored, I wasn't capable of giving love in return. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even sure I'd accept it. But I carry the story. I tell it, even if just to myself. As a reminder. As a promise. That next time, if there is a next time, I won't run from honesty. I won't hold two hands and call it love. I'll choose. Fully. With clarity. With courage. Because in the end, wanting both of them didn't make me powerful. It made me lost. And choosing no one taught me what I should have learned from the beginning. Love isn't something you take. It's something you earn. Something you honor. And once it's broken, it never comes back the same.